Welcome back to All Things Pink, where we discuss all things women over 40. And we are here for part 5 of the Menopause series. And today we're going to be talking about food intolerances and inflammation.
Out in the open to the horizon, where your heart can finally breathe. Out in the open to the horizon, baby, let your love run wild, wild, wild. You gotta get out there and explore, baby, let your love run wild, wild, wild.
Welcome back, guys. And I love doing these series. Welcome back again, Christina Brockett, licensed clinical nutritionist. I swear I will get that right one of these days.
You're fine.
I'm so glad we're talking about this because this particular topic is very near and dear to my heart. It's actually the bane of my existence here lately and going through perimenopause. Food intolerances during this specific time of our lives, right? So for me, this was absolutely
I'm
something.
just laughing because time of your life, I'm thinking the Dirty Dancing. It's the
This
exact
is
opposite of
not,
that.
yeah, like this is like the worst. For me, it's one of the worst things that has actually happened during this outside, brain fog, loss of sleep, being completely stressed out. And now you can't eat what you want. And as we had talked about, I think I'm so mad because it's not necessarily like the bad stuff I want to eat. I can eat that perfectly fine. It's the good stuff I like to eat. It's the
Right.
vegetables and beans and like pico de gallo and like I can have tomatoes. I mean, it's been a struggle, right? And it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like one day everything was fine. It was going on fine. And then all of a sudden I was like, gluten decided it was going to wreak complete havoc on my body. And so I think I was like, hey, is this normal? Like, does this happen to people? And it happened to our colleague and friend Jen. So is this something that happens during perimenopause and menopause?
Yes.
Yay.
Yay. Another thing. I mean, again, one of the things that people really just don't necessarily associate with the fluctuations in hormones and the implications that it has throughout your body. Like, I know we're talking about, we've talked about weight gain, we've talked about how your body responds to stress, we've talked about all of these things, but, estrogen and progesterone play, and testosterone, but more the estrogen and progesterone play a really key role in everything from your eyesight. Your eyes change
Oh my gosh, that's another
because
one. Yeah.
because of declining estrogen
Yeah.
levels. You can develop ringing in your ears,
Tinnitus. Yes.
you know. So, you've got the cardiovascular system, you've got all of these body systems that, are brain function. We've talked about
Yeah.
that. All of these body systems are impacted by fluctuating levels of hormones. And if you think back to, and for any of those who are still getting their cycles, that time leading up to your cycle, and you would have,
All
maybe
these
your
crazy
bowel functions,
symptoms.
maybe you were constipated, then during your cycle you had loose stools. Some of that goes directly back to the fluctuations in hormones. So when our hormones, depending on where you are in this process, are fluctuating up and down, or maybe they're more lower level, or maybe you're on HRT, maybe you're not, like, all of those things are going to have an impact. And estrogen plays a very anti-inflammatory role in the body. Progesterone also acts as like the chill pill in the body.
Right.
So without the chill pill, you respond more to stressors. Stress is innately intertwined with GI function, and is, I think in one of the sessions we've talked about like adverse childhood experiences being a sort of
Yes.
laying the groundwork for later development of IBS. So they're all very, 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 very interrelated. But there's a whole lot more to it than that.
Well, I see this, I feel this. Like, and that is it's not like an allergy per se. Like a lot of people talk about like food allergies versus sensitivities. It's not like, but these intolerances or sensitivities are strong and they're disruptive.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, we're supposed to eat healthier. We're, watching our weights and we're doing all these things. And along comes my gut hurts so bad when I eat a tomato now. It's like acid reflux on steroids. Like it's that bad. And then you have to change all of that. It's so funny because I believe it was my daughter, in her 20s, and she's like, that happened to me. I don't think I could do that. I was like, well, thanks, because you don't have a choice. Like
Right.
this is what it is.
Yeah.
So that's I want to talk a little bit about what is the difference between those, because people do get them. So like gluten is a big one.
Hmm.
There's allergy to it, and then there's like a sensitivity to it, and those are two different
They're very different
things.
things. I mean, you can have an actual um, allergic reaction to it. And that has a very defined medical definition, categorization. They are either going to do a skin prick test or a blood test, etc. And even that, though, you can show up as a false negative or false positive. And really, when it comes to food versus environmental, they will also then look at what are your symptoms when you are experiencing that. So there's that. Um, since and everybody I'm sure has heard of somebody that they know that has celiac, you know what I mean? So, that's a very significant hyper autoimmune kind of reaction. So there's that, but then there's also this idea of sensitivities based on altered GI function, right? Because when you have your hormones aren't operating as they used to, your digestive state's going to slow down. That can lead to undigested food in the body, in the GI tract, which can lead to this thing called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO. Um, and people can then become reactive to foods that fall in the FODMAP category in particular. But it has to do with the fact that they've now got this bacterial overgrowth that needs to be addressed. So, what the root cause of those sensitivities are really varies. I mean, another one is estrogen and progesterone play roles with breaking down histamine in the body. And some of the foods that people have problems with are higher histamine foods or histamine releasing foods, or they have a mast cell response. And so now foods that they used to be able to tolerate, suddenly they just can't tolerate anymore, because like progesterone helps to turn up the activity on this enzyme that helps to break that histamine down. So, where and what the root cause of somebody's issues are really remains to be seen. And I think the other element to keep in mind with all of this is that as we age, our digestive enzymes are different. The acid breaking down food
Yes,
happens differently.
yes.
If we are more stressed out, your body's going to turn down that process anyway because it feels that you are not in a rest and digest state, you're in a fight or flight state, and then you further
Right.
perpetuate everything. So there's all of these things that just can kind of develop, and where the root cause is for any one person, honestly, completely and utterly varies.
Absolutely. So it's interesting, the histamine
Yeah.
thing that you're talking about. I was watching one of your
Yeah.
Instagrams, and
Yeah.
it's an interesting, if you could just revisit that for our viewers, and because that was such a great tip for people to understand, like seasonally,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
this affects you.
So, histamine is part of the body's inflammatory cascade, right? So That's part of the immune response. We are, at this time of year, depending on where you are geographically, you are exposed to environmental allergens. And most people in the DC metro area
Yes.
are on some level of an antihistamine. So, something to kind of keep their histamine levels low because that higher histamine might lead to congestion or,
Uncontrollable sneezing.
sneezing or headaches or
Yeah.
all the things. um but there are higher histamine foods and then there are histamine releasing foods. And so if you think about inflammation or you think about the body's response to this, just like anything, maybe you can tolerate a small amount of something, but you can't tolerate too much, or you have a negative reaction. Well, at this time of year, you may not be able to tolerate a lot of high histamine foods or histamine releasing foods because already, because of environmental exposure, you're already here. So you have a little bit, it
Right, right.
overflows, and then you react.
Which is crazy. One of the things that we have mentioned, this is the FODMAP situation.
Hmm.
Explain what FODMAP is or what it means. It's basically a list of all the foods I like to eat.
Yeah.
Like,
So essentially, it breaks down foods based on their components, and if you think about them in terms of different type of sugars, and so the body is not able to deal as well with them for some people. And some people, when you have um, IBS or another type of an issue, you may have a reaction to these foods when you ingest them. And so, for instance, asparagus would be considered low FODMAP at, I don't know, I think it's like 2 or 3 spears, but anything that you get above
yeah.
that is considered high FODMAP. And it gets into the load on your system. It kind of
Yes.
transitions to a higher load on your system. And then we have problems with it and we react.
Yes, and these are small, like what I've read on the charts and things, it's very small portions before you start to enter into.
Smaller, if any at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was like 2 tablespoons, and I'm just like, it's a vegetable. It's something I love to eat, and I have to limit now and kind of map out what I'm eating. If I have one well, on like a Monday, the rest of the day I have to go low FODMAP, so I can give myself a little bit, but
You
I
can't
can't eat
tolerate
like
it.
I can't tolerate it like I used to. So I know it's mind blowing that so many the foods on that list, these are healthy things.
They
They're
are, and some of them are not so healthy, but they are
yeah,
healthy things. And like two of the biggies out there are onions and garlic. And people
two of
don't,
my favorite things.
yes, and people don't think about them in that respect because they're also they they're in everything.
Yeah,
And they are, if you are truly having a reaction, you might have it in the tiniest amount. And you mentioned tomatoes. Some people develop issues with nightshades, which your tomatoes, your potatoes, your peppers,
the bell
the
peppers.
bell peppers. But it's not just bell peppers, right? That starts to extend into paprika, cayenne,
Yes.
and anything, chili powder, like anything that is a derivative of, people can develop issues and sensitivities to.
Which is so it's kind of depressing. Um, but another one of those things we have to wrap our head around and say, okay, this is what this is, right? I'm going to have to just learn how to navigate through all of this and how we figure all of this out. There's like, I guess, what, 2 ways? You can either have the test done or you do the elimination diets. What are
So
your thoughts on the choices we have to figure out what it really is.
So when you say have the test done, which tests are you referring to?
So I've never had one done, but I have heard people say they took a food insensitivity blood test.
Uh,
What are your thoughts? I did the elimination diet. Took what feels I feel like I'm still doing the elimination
so
diets.
there's
So
there oh gosh, there's so much to say here about this. Sorry, my brain sometimes I'm just like,
it's
oh my gosh,
okay.
I need to say blah blah blah.
Well, because so many tests now you can get on the internet
Yeah.
and you send it in, and there's so much information about this. I just kind of wanted to throw that
Yeah. So
question out there.
the thing I think first and foremost, okay, we're gonna rewind quite a bit here.
Okay.
First and foremost, I think the best thing you can do is work on gut health. Period. End of discussion. Because if you are super stressed out or you're constantly hitting your gut with foods that are known triggers or known allergens or high alcohol use or other things like that, and you have a more permeable gut, and everybody must have heard at some point in time about leaky gut, but there is truth to that,
Mm-hmm.
um, then anything that is a possible trigger is getting through that kind of barrier system, right? So the healthier our gut is, if you think about it, from the time that you eat food to the time that you eliminate it, stays kind of contained. If the foundation of your house is a little rocky, things are going to get through and you're going to have leaks.
Yeah.
And those leaks are going to trigger negative immune responses in your body. So, and I mention all of this because I have worked with people that do the sensitivity testing. And although from like a true allergy perspective, there's a lot of controversy on the
Gotcha.
sensitivity testing, because if you are already in a place where your gut is like things are going through all the time and you're reacting to everything, then those tests are not going to be terribly accurate for sensitivity,
Huh.
because everything's making you sensitive. And I have seen
Interesting.
people's tests come back and it's so overwhelming and so depressing. They're like, I can't eat anything.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm like.
Well, but that's also psychologically not a great place to be in
Well,
either,
yeah. That's why I'm
right?
like, okay, like how do we wrap our head around what reaction I'm having to these foods instead of just
Exactly.
sitting in the fetal position in the corner crying because I can no longer eat. I've like looked for ways I can still incorporate things without reaching the limit
Yeah.
where I'm,
And
writhing in
I
pain.
think direct to consumer testing is fantastic. I think it is very empowering. And, I'm all about educate, inform, empower my clients. I want you armed with data. I am a data junkie. But as an individual that doesn't do that for a living, if you get back a result because you just went to get this test done and it's so overwhelming to you and you have absolutely no guidance, it can shut you down. And I've
Absolutely.
seen people go from that to eating barely nothing, being really restrictive, and that has its own risks and negatives too. So I think that those tests do have value. And I think the value is looking at them from a starting point. And
Gotcha.
so for some of my clients, I will go full elimination diet because that is where they are. That's what they want. That's what they need. Other
Right.
people, it's, I can't do that. I am so overwhelmed. I want to start someplace else. And that's okay. And I want to
Mhm.
give people permission. It's okay. Everybody's at a different place. Their cases are all different. It's okay. Because I think there's a lot of shame, like, well, if you don't do the full elimination diet, you're never going to get better. And
Oh
that
gosh.
negativity breeds stress, which
Which just can
contributes to
cause
leaky
the
gut, and it,
problems.
it, it
Yes.
perpetuates the issue.
Yes.
So there's that.
But I think people also have that mindset about dieting. Like that's why
Yes.
diets are so like intense. Like remember the
No.
cabbage soup
Yeah.
diet? Like
Although I did like that cabbage soup. It was
I love
delicious.
cabbage soup. Like for weeks, or like anything that you are completely depriving
Yeah,
yourself
well, and
of
that
nutrients is going to be bad regardless.
it's going to end up, I come from a school of thought of that intuitive eating, mindful eating kind of world
Yes.
where I try not to demonize food. Food is serving you one way or another. It's either
Sure.
serving your body, like, how is this serving me? How is it making me feel? Where am I right now? And that
Right.
changes based on life stage. But elimination, for some people, they need to do the full elimination for 30 days, give their body a chance to heal, and then they can bring in little bits. For
Yes.
other people, that is too overwhelming, and sometimes it is a wait and see and really document everything that you're eating
Yes.
and looking at the particular elements that seem to be, a trigger. And I have looked at 35 pages of somebody's handwritten journal and narrowed it down to two spices that she was using. So
Oh, so then you don't have to not eat certain things. It could be
it'd be
something
something else.
else.
Yes.
That I think is a very important point to everything,
Yes.
is that it can always be something else,
And
right? Well, it's just like when you go out to eat, right? You go out to a restaurant, you don't know what they're
nope.
using. So if it makes you feel bad, or then you go over here and you could order the same thing and it doesn't make you feel bad. And we've talked about different countries. You go to another country and you're eating the bread
Uh-huh.
and you're fine. You
Uh-huh.
feel great. But here, not so much. So like there's data in that
There's
says it could very well be how that food is being made and what they're putting in it, not necessarily the food.
Yeah, it could be that, or it could be it's such a new enough substance to your body hasn't had a chance to figure out and categorize it yet and react negatively to it. So there's,
I'm gonna eat it all before my
yeah,
body has a
yeah.
chance to
So you can do the elimination diet. Usually with those tests, though, I usually suggest let's pick the really hot red items, the top tier items, and maybe put the pause button on them and then rotate through. So it goes back to kind of that idea of the histamine response.
Yeah.
Don't eat all the high histamine things all at the same time. Instead, eat them in moderation. Focus on the things that are really, definitively, every time I eat this, it puts me in the bathroom. Yeah, cut that one out.
Well, and the timing. So like hummus is, I love it. I love it so much. I stopped being able to eat it later, before I like down to go to bed. Like it had to be earlier
Earlier
in
in
the
the
day.
day. Okay.
Otherwise the heartburn would be like out of control. So I'm very careful before I go to sleep and like lay down, because it's that acid reflux.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I've had to completely eliminate it.
I
And I make
think,
my own now. So I like wash the
yeah.
chickpeas and I try to like limit. So, but that's an adjustment. That's not like a deprivation. So,
No, and I think this, uh, as far as this season in life, I like to view it as an opportunity, right? It's all about how you frame things. This season in life is an opportunity to increase mindfulness and intentionality about what you let into your life, what
oh
you
yeah,
expose yourself to, what you eat,
on so
how
many
you
levels.
live. Yeah, I
Yes.
mean,
On every
all
level.
of the things, right? This is
Yeah.
a season of intentionality and mindfulness. And, if you operate from that space, then hopefully the deprivation piece doesn't feel like it's so intense.
Now, if the food intolerances are connected with this season of life and the
Hmm.
hormones, if that is the case and it's not the 50 other things it could be, when you go through menopause, does that change, or do we just keep all the intolerances?
So, you're going to hate
Or
my
do we
answer.
even know the answer to that
Well,
question?
I think the answer to that question depends. And my clients hate when I say that, but it truly does because we're
Well,
all different. We're all biochemically different. Some people are on HRT and that actually helps. Some people try
yes.
HRT and that doesn't help. And it, in some cases, can make things worse. So
Yes.
it depends on the person. And I think the biggest thing, much like night sweats, people, absent HRT, some people don't have night sweats, some people do. Some people have them for a period of time. And then the body figures out, all right, we got this. We understand what's happening. We're gonna land here. The body's always finding a way to be in balance or homeostasis. Like it's trying to adjust and find where its pattern is. Sometimes that adjustment is not for the best. And sometimes you may have a reaction, but then you're like, okay, well, all right, now that everything's chilled out. And the other
Yeah.
thing to consider is that your hormones, like in this life stage, until they even out, you could be having problems at one time, 1 month,
Everything's
and
up for
3 months,
grabs.
you have
Yeah.
no problems
Yeah,
whatsoever
exactly.
because your hormones have completely and utterly changed, even on
So it's
HRT.
basically like don't set up camp anywhere.
Don't set up camp
Don't
any.
set up camp anywhere because this could all change like a few weeks from now, a few months from now.
This is about developing that intentionality and mental flexibility.
Yeah.
We have to be flexible, much like when we were younger and we were going through puberty and we didn't know what was happening. We had no control over our emotions
We're
or
constantly angry.
constantly angry or heck, those
The world
fluctuations.
is ending.
The world is ending tomorrow. I can't handle it. No, but you have to realize that right now your body is going through that as well. And so you do whatever you can to
Yeah.
support and enhance where it is in this moment. And that is also not to say that you don't look into some of these other things, like whether or not you are reacting to higher histamine, because there are people that develop a histamine intolerance and absent some level of guidance, they are going to have a lot of problems. Or
Right, right.
there are other people that develop small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and or SIBO, and without interventions, they're just going to continue to have problems. So you've got to be aware of what's happening with your body and then adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and I think that that's the biggest thing and as if we didn't have enough things on our list, inflammation has become another topic that people are talking about because it's also incredibly important. Now, this is incredibly important for
Yeah,
everyone.
inflammation is the root of like most chronic disease.
Yeah. So, we're going to specifically talk about its relationship during this season,
Yeah, I mean
this
it.
lovely season, how it relates to that and how, like, that, how do you connect the dots there between inflammation and peri and menopause?
So, when you have this reduction in hormones, the inflammatory process in general goes up. That's why people are like, now
The
and
aching
the aching
joints.
joints and all of the things. Um, but more importantly than that, I think it goes back to what we were talking about before, which is the body and our reaction to stressors. So if you are hyper reacting to stress, you're going to feed into that inflammatory cascade.
Yes.
If your digestive system is slowed and you find that you don't have the enzymes to break down the food that you really liked that well anymore, and you continue to eat those foods, guess what? You're driving up the inflammatory process. And
Yes.
then that makes everything that you're feeling worse.
Yes.
And then
And it also makes you at heightened risk for these chronic illnesses,
yeah, I mean,
right? So like
inflammation
if
in
that's the
general.
root,
Yeah.
to all of this,
And
then
chronic inflammation, not just like an
yes.
acute period of time, but chronic inflammation is what we're
Well, I
really
feel
talking
like
about.
that's actually what people are experiencing if all the stress, there's no relief, I'm not paying attention to my body, now I'm having food issues and this and that, like
You're getting hit
it's
from a multitude of
chronic,
directions. Yeah.
that becomes, a chronic issue. And I'm not sure if you could just give like a brief, like, what is inflammation, just so people are aware of what we're kind of referring to.
Well, inflammation, a lot of times when people think about inflammation, they are thinking about like maybe a twisted ankle or they cut their hand or they sprained their finger or whatever, and that's an acute response, meaning that it's happening in response to some action that is happening. What we're talking about is the body's sort of immune response that gets turned up when there's a perceived stressor happening consistently. And that stressor can be um, emotional stress, right? So if we are constantly acting as the shock absorbers to all the different family items and stressors that are out there, it's going to drive up that response. If we are continually running on no sleep, that's going to act as a stressor.
Oh,
If
yeah.
we are having so all of these stressors drive up the body's inflammatory response and these chemicals and things like that in our bodies. If we are gravitating towards really high sugary items, believe it or not,
I
that
was
can
just getting ready to say, what are we eating that is causing inflammation?
well, we can have inflammation to foods that we're sensitive to. So, if you have a sensitivity to a particular food and you notice every time you feel that food, you just feel a little bit off and you feel irritable or you feel anxious or you feel like just not right, maybe you're having a reaction to the food, but it's
Yeah.
slight. It's not like you can't breathe or talk or swallow, it's
Right.
or you're breaking out in hives. It's subtle, and all of those things kind of come together, and over time that's what kind of sets the stage for some of these other issues down the road.
And that's a very important distinction, and it's basically just kind of like we're drawing a basic map that all these things are connected.
Oh,
And you
absolutely.
have this beautiful opportunity to be aware of it and become aware of it. It is heightened during this time. It is heightened during
Well,
perimenopause and menopause. But we have this opportunity to be able to adjust how we think about
correct.
it and how we react to it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this horrible thing.
No, it doesn't. I mean, if you think about it, your hormones at this point would help provide that, buffer to inflammation. Well, when they're not there at the level that they were, we, our bodies are now reacting to things that perhaps they didn't react to before. Um, we aren't sleeping as well as we used to. And if you're not sleeping as well, you aren't going to be able to handle the stressors. And by the way, you are going to be reaching for foods that maybe
Oh,
aren't the
yeah.
best for you. And then that's going to act as a stressor on your body. And then the cascade kind of, it's
You
just this
guys see
vicious circle.
like a broken record going on where we are continually saying those same things, the stress, the sleep, the this, the that,
Yeah,
everything is
it's
connected into a big like ball of yarn.
it
Like
is.
it's
It's
all into the
fascinating when I
same.
talk to people and we'll have our discussions. I might say to them, we're going to work on food because we want to reduce the food implications that this is having as a stress or a negative impact on your
Right,
body, right?
right.
We're going to start there. But down the road, we are going to look at these things about stress, your movement or lack thereof, or how well you're sleeping, because all of these things, even moderate exercise, can help reduce the stress response and reduce inflammation in the body. So,
Yes, yes,
and it
yes.
doesn't have to be you're running a marathon.
No.
Actually, a gentle, just movement of some variety is better. I was talking to somebody last night and they said, "Well, I didn't get any movement in." And I said, "Okay." And then this individual said, "Well, I actually do the side thing where I deliver packages on the side."
So you are
And I
moving.
was like, wait, what?" And she's like, "Yeah, I did, 100 or whatever packages recently in the last few days." And I said, "So you were running from your car to delivering and then back?" And she's like, "Yeah." I said, "You were moving."
Yes.
But we don't think
It's a
about that.
misconception of
Correct.
what that actually
Yeah.
means. So again, you're always such a wealth of information, and that's very valuable. So thank you for coming on the cast again. And you guys, thank you so much for joining us here on All Things Pink. If you are watching, please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and please share your experiences, ask your questions. That's what the comment section is for. If you want to listen, you can also find us on Apple and Spotify. And please join us next time for another part of the menopause series here on All Things Pink.